How are you? What's this energy? How are you guys? Good? Yes? Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our first Pi and AI event in Bogotá City. Thank you. Yes? Thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. This evening is brought to you by Deep Learning AI, Landing AI, and AI Fund. Also, a special thanks to the Chamber of Commerce, Colombia AI, and Mintic. As some of you may know, Deep Learning AI is an AI education company founded by Dr. Andrew Ang, here tonight. Yes! A global recognized leader in the field of artificial intelligence, as you may know. Before I go on to introduce our speakers tonight, I will make a couple of announcements first. The first one is that Deep Learning AI recently launched their weekly newsletter called The Batch. It's a comprehensive source for news of the latest advancements in occurrences in the world of AI. If you want to keep up with the fast-growing world of AI, you can sign up for the newsletter at deeplearningai.com/The Batch. Also, for the people who have finished their deep learning specialization, it's a Deep Learning AI team is looking to feature your story and how taking the specialization has affected your career in AI. So if you have finished your specialization and are now working in AI, they are asking for you to send them a note at hello@deeplearning.ai with your story and what you're working on to be featured. Next, we have some giveaways before we start with our speakers. So for that, I'm inviting Cassandra.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. So I have some questions. They are related to the field of AI, so I'm pretty sure all of you are able to answer those. And we're going to give away 5 mocks from TensorFlow. So the first question is, what are the names of the 3 companies in our AI ecosystem? Yes? Oh, you're reading.
We don't know, but okay. Yay!
So this is the mock. So the next one is deeplearning.ai recently launched a TensorFlow specialization. I want you to tell me in what month and year was TensorFlow originally released by Google? That was difficult, right? No? No one?
Yes, sir.
Oh. Oh.
November 2015?
Can you repeat? Sorry?
November 2015.
Correct. Yay! Okay, so this one is more technical. Can you name 2 of the most famous object detection algorithms?
YOLO version 1 and version 2.
So YOLO is one. Give me another one.
SSD, like my BubbleNet. BubbleNet.
Okay, you got it. Okay, the other one is technical as well. Can you name the most widely used optimization algorithm for neural networks? So at the back, there. Stand up. Sorry, can you repeat it on the microphone?
Gradient descent.
Yes, so it's stochastic gradient descent. Yay! Okay, so the last one. Andrew Ang recently wrote a book and he released it online chapter by chapter. Can someone name that book?
Machine learning for everyone.
Oh, no. So now at the back, he also in the back, at the back, at the back. He.
Machine learning journey.
Yes, correct. Awesome. So now Estefania is going to introduce our speakers for today.
Thank you, Cassandra. Okay, guys, so now the reason we're all here tonight. As you know, today we have three special guests. First and foremost, Andrew Ang. Dr. Ang, a global recognized leader in AI, is CEO of Landing AI and general partner at the AI Fund. As the former chief scientist at Baidu and the founding lead at the Google Brain team, he led the AI transformation of two of the world's leading technology companies.
Hey everyone. Thank you. Thank you. It's great to see all of you here. Thank you.
A longtime advocate of accessible education, Dr. Ang is the co-founder of Coursera, an online learning platform and founder of Deep Learning AI and AI education platform. Dr. Ang is also an adjunct professor at Stanford University Computer Science Department in California. Next, we have Jeudy Castro, system engineer at EAFIT University and MBA with a concentration in innovation and entrepreneurship of the Politecnico de Milano. More than 15 years of experience in the software sector, Jeudy has led multinationals like Red Hat and Oracle. Currently, Jeudy is the Vice Minister of Digital Economy in the TIC Ministry. And last but not least, Alejandro Betancourt. Alejandro is the General Manager and Senior Machine Learning Engineer at Landing AI Colombia. Alejandro holds a PhD in Cognitive Environments for the Technical University of Eindhoven in the Netherlands. And the University of Genova in Italy. He has also held a Master's in Science, Applied Mathematics, and Bachelor's in Science and Mathematical Engineering. Alejandro's research has been published by several peer-reviewed journals and conferences. Most recently, Alejandro has developed an AI power system for companies including Ecopetrol, TP Vision, which is Philippines Television, the Development Bank of Latin America, CAF. Welcome to our speakers.
Thank you. Thank you.
And before we get started, I want to mention we've run Pi and AI meetups in multiple cities around the world. Our first one was in Seattle, did one in London, did one in the Bay Area, did one in Medellin. But looking at all of you here, this is the biggest Pi and AI meetup we've ever run. So it's good to see you guys here.
Yeah, that's actually nice, Andrew. Like, I'm really glad to have you here. I think everybody here probably has taken your courses, so it's kind of really inspiring to have you in Colombia, in Bogotá, and tomorrow in Colombia 4.0 as well. And yeah, of course, Jeudy, we have been discussing a lot. Actually, you were planned to go to Medellin, so this was like, we were looking for this meeting, so I'm really happy to have you here as well.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I want to thank you, Andrew, for believing in Colombia, to bring your companies here, to believe in Colombia talent. This room is full of it.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's have a nice talk about AI, about the future of AI in Latin America, the impact that we have in Colombia. And let's start with a question for Andrew. Like, how a successful professor from Stanford became a successful entrepreneur these days?
Yeah, I think I tend not to talk a lot about myself, but I guess I've always been very mission-oriented and have wanted to work on either the development of AI technology or helping others adopt AI or on education. So some of you know I was teaching professor at Stanford, leading the Stanford AI Lab, and felt that AI technology had matured to a point where I was ready to make a leap to industry. So wound up starting and leading the Google Brain team, which helped Google become good at deep learning and machine learning AI. And I was fortunate to have great partners, on the team. And then along the way, realized that rather than delivering the same lecture year after year at Stanford, which is what I was doing, literally many years in a row, I would go to the same classroom in Stanford, and I would deliver the same lecture. I would even tell the same jokes. And I realized that we now have the technology to provide the education to a global audience. And so with some students wound up developing online technologies that later turned into Coursera. And other than leading AI, and then also with Coursera maturing, I realized that leading AI at Baidu could let me help yet another company become AI enabled and also build up AI not just in Silicon Valley but also in China. And having done a couple companies, Google, Baidu, one of the things I'm most excited about right now, beyond education, is to take AI to other industries. If you look at what we've done in AI, I think we've transformed the software internet industry, and there's more work to be done there still. The next phase for AI is for it to transform every other industry, everything from manufacturing, agriculture, healthcare, logistics, and also to take it outside Silicon Valley and Beijing. One of the mistakes we made with the rise of the internet was we created tremendous wealth, but it was also very concentrated in Silicon Valley and Beijing. So one of the reasons I'm excited about building AI in Colombia is this time around, with the rise of AI, we need more global hubs of AI, and I hope that Colombia will be one of those new hubs of AI. And taking it outside software, outside a few cities, will also be important to how we make sure that this time around, with the rise of AI, we will create a lot of wealth. But this way we can make sure that the wealth is more fairly shared.
Well, Yehudi, I will say that you were not looking for public policies. You were a tech guy working in Oracle, working in Red Hat, and suddenly you appear here in the public policies, working for this country, working to make a great ecosystem and digital economy here. How was that change? Why you decide to move from the tech industry to the public policies?
I'm still a techie and actually a geek. I was working in Red Hat and in Oracle for 10 years. Then I decided to do an MBA, so that was the first step. And after that, I decided to take the path of entrepreneurship, and I was doing consulting for a couple of years. It was based in Europe. But then I decided to give back. So I was looking for the way to do it in the best way for Colombia. Even if I was living abroad, I was spending 2 months always in Colombia. I never lost the connection with my country, and I always wanted to give back. And the way to have more impact maybe is through public policies, and that's why I'm here right now.
Really nice. I have seen you in different countries closing deals with people abroad, bringing people to the country. I think that's really helpful for the economy of the country. Vice Ministry of Digital Economy, right? So can you explain a bit to the public what is digital economy and why that's important for the country?
Digital economy in theory is all the transactions that happen in the economy with the help of digital technology. But in reality, in the ministry, is even more than that, because we are in charge of digital government, so we need to transform the government, and this is something that we know artificial intelligence can be very helpful. Also, cybersecurity is one of the topics that is under the Vice Ministry of Digital Economy, and to help the companies to do their digital transformation. So also to help not only the public but the private sector to do this, to bring more investment that generates more jobs, very quality of life to the people, and to achieve also appropriation. because it's very important that no one is left behind. Like in Colombia, we still have almost half of the country without internet. So through these 4 years, a lot of people is going to have internet for first time, and they need to know what are the huge opportunities that they see here. Also, the part of entrepreneurship, digital entrepreneurship, and digital talent that has a very, very big link with the opportunities that artificial intelligence brings. That's like the task that I have on my desk.
Nice. So you mentioned first AI. So I will ask Andrew, what is AI? I think some people already have a concept, but I would like to know from you, what is AI? And basically, how is creating value already in the economy worldwide?
Yeah, AI is one of those funny terms whose meaning has been shifting over the years. I think that it's actually very interesting. 20, 30 years ago, finding the shortest path from here to the airport, say, that used to be cutting-edge AI. It was actually an A-star algorithm invented by what became a Stanford professor, Niels Nielsen. But today, it's just built into your GPS. What's the big deal? So the set of software techniques we use to make computers behave intelligently, artificial intelligence, has always been a shifting target where once it works, it seems to disappear into the background. But I think that's actually good because the best technology should disappear into the background. So someday, hopefully, you'll be just hopping into your car, and of course it drives itself. You won't even call it a self-driving car anymore, someday in the distant future. As for the value of AI, I think much like the rise of electricity 100 years ago transformed every industry, AI is now in level of maturity where we see a surprisingly clear path for it to transform every industry. And one of the lessons I learned is that if you make an analogy to another disruptive technology, the rise of the internet, one of the lessons we learned was that you can have a shopping mall, build a website. That does not turn the shopping mall into an internet company. Instead, a true internet company like Amazon does a lot of other things that enables it to use the internet well. Things like A/B testing, short shipping times, different ways of organizing, how product managers and software engineers work together. And with the rise of AI, I think it is also time to rethink how a lot of companies and a lot of industries should be built. In the future, in a lot of businesses, what we do, what we should not bother to do, what are the key value, what are the things most important for a company to get right, that is shifting to AI. We're seeing a lot of concrete use cases already in the software internet industry. So in companies like Google and Baidu, it's used to improve web search, to improve online advertising, for machine translation, for speech recognition, and on and on and on. Outside the software internet industry, we see more and more exciting use cases. We're doing a lot of work in agriculture to build more efficient or smarter agricultural machinery. In manufacturing, we could use AI to improve manufacturing yield or do visual inspection. And I think that one of the challenges of AI is that it's not a piece of SaaS software. You can swipe your credit card and buy AI. It actually needs to be customized for different industries. So part of the important work to be done by our community, by all of you, by all of us, is to go to different industries and to figure out the use cases that allow us to drive AI into value into all of these different businesses.
Yeah. Okay, I think you are probably one of the few, if not the only one, that has been involved in two gigantic companies, in basically the two AI leaders in the world. So you lead the strategy, basically you kickstart the strategy of Google, and later you move to Baidu, and you have observed how Silicon Valley grow from zero to not what is today, but to be one of the most important AI hubs around the world. The same in Beijing, right? What is that experience? How AI changed the strategy of those companies? How the countries change with AI? And what will be your recommendation for Colombia to follow these learnings?
Yeah, not a lot of people know how AI took off how deep learning took off within Google and then across Silicon Valley. Let me share with you some of the stories. When I started Google Brain, Google internally did not know how to use deep learning. In fact, it was early, so everyone was very skeptical about deep learning. So what did we do? We started small. My first internal customer was the Google Speech team, which was not the most lucrative project at Google, right? Actually, speech now makes Google quite a lot of money, but back then it definitely did not. But by using deep learning to make Google's speech recognition system more accurate, this helped other teams within Google start to have faith in deep learning and in my team to help them. My second internal customer was the Google Maps team, and we used computer vision to read house numbers to more accurately locate houses on Google Maps. So that improved the quality of map data. It was only after those two success stories that I started the conversation with the advertising team, a more serious conversation with the advertising team. So I think in a lot of companies in Colombia too, it will start small and have the first success, host other teams within the company to gain faith, and then go to yet another company. Now, one other thing that happened in Silicon Valley was after 1.5 years into the Google Brain project, we announced this, slightly infamous Google Cat result. Unsupervised learning, YouTube videos recognize cats. It was a front page of the New York Times Digital Edition. It seemed exciting at the time. But one direct impact of that was shortly after that announcement, I got calls from other large Silicon Valley companies. I won't name them, but you could kind of guess who some of them were, to ask for advice on how to build up their own AI functions. So seeing the early success of Google Brain was, I was there. It was the direct motivation, the direct inspiration for some of the other large AI teams that you may read about in the news now. So I think it will be like that too in Colombia, where I hope there'll be some early adopters that will start small, build a project, ratchet up to bigger project, ratchet up to bigger project, and then when there are 1 or 2 Colombian companies getting great results in AI, others will hear about it. We'll all see them as being a bit ahead of everyone else, and then this will also grow the ecosystem and grow the community. In Silicon Valley, we are part of we built a community in Silicon Valley where it's not about one company wins and no one else has anything. Instead, in Silicon Valley, we often share ideas with each other, teach each other things. People in different companies often chat and are friends. And that community and ecosystem lifted up Silicon Valley. Companies would call me and say, hey, Andrew, what do I do? And I would just talk to them, and we all do this. This is one of the things I hope we will do here in Colombia as well, where whatever city you live in, Bogotá, Medellin, somewhere else, Colombia is one nation, and we should all be helping each other in this community so that we can all lift up AI in Colombia together. And I think this will create a lot of value to all of you in this room and to everyone in this country.
Yeah.
Yehudi, AI is part of the Colombian digital economy. How is currently happening this evolution in the country, and what's the future of AI in the digital economy of Colombia?
So regarding Colombia, we have been taking some steps in this year. First of all, we brought the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution with the World Economic Forum. It's the first one for Latin America, the first one in a country, in a Spanish-speaking country. And it's not only going to be for a city, but it's for the whole continent. There we develop public policy, but it's also a do tank. So we check with experts of all around the world. There are another 5 centers, the main one in San Francisco, how to develop this public policy so the technology can be better adopted in the country and on the region. And we need to prioritize 3 technologies for this center. And we did artificial intelligence, blockchain, and Internet of Things. So this was like the first step. Second step is regarding talent. So we are doing very aggressive plans for training people in artificial intelligence. Right now, there are 4,413 citizens being trained on artificial intelligence in Coursera and in Platzi, like the ones with certificates, the programs that are behind the paywall. And soon, this number, in less than a month, is going to be 20,000. This is open to all the public, so I really encourage the public here to participate. They have in total 10 courses, many of them by Andrew, actually, because this is with Coursera, with this platforms. So also is the part of talent. Also tax incentives. So in the law at the beginning of the government, we put an exemption of 7 years of the new companies bringing investment to Colombia, but they need to be technology companies or creative economy companies. So this makes us very competitive when we want to compete with the rest of Latin America because this is a global market. And we are finishing up a public policy document that in Colombia is called Compass, that is like the public policy for the next 5 years. It's called Artificial Intelligence with emphasis, Digital Transformation with emphasis in Artificial Intelligence. And we are going to have the first country in South America to have a public policy with artificial intelligence. This strategy has been reviewed, for instance, for University of Zurich, from SoftBank, MIT, Harvard, and we are getting these comments inside the document, and it's going to be published probably in 2 months. And we continue with the execution of programs of talent, especially. The 4th of October is going to start a pilot on data science, where this is a world-class program, 400 hours, 10 weeks. This is presential. And when we opened the inscription, it was open to the public like for 2 weeks, and we got 10,000 people interested in the program. We needed to choose 300, but bear in mind that it was a pilot. So more is coming, and that has been our main focus regarding AI policy.
It will sound crazy, like to listen that number, 150K people trained in technology. That's
yes.
a nice driver.
So for the end of the government, the goal for all the government, not only for the ministry, is 150,000. So we are starting this year with around 20,000, a little bit more, only for the ministry, but also there is the Ministry of Education and SENA. SENA, for instance, is changing their focus. They used to give a lot of technical training, for instance, for gardening, for plumbing, and now we are focusing them more in what the market actually needs. And it has a lot to do with software engineering. And also we are training the kids. So we have this new program, Coding for Kids, that is in the 32 departments, like states here in Colombia. And this year we are training 15,000 kids, teaching them how to code. And next year is going to be 30,000. So it's not only the need that we have right now, but also a need that we are going to have in 15 years that we are addressing.
That's amazing. That's kind of massifying education all around, creating a new generation of engineers and people knowing how to program, about AI, about databases, Python, etc. That's really nice movement.
Exactly.
Okay.
And can I just say, I think these educational efforts are really wonderful. I wish more countries had thoughtful leaders. They can roll this out. And what I see, one of the strengths of Silicon Valley and Beijing is that it's not 1 or 2 people. Maybe, for example, last week I had a technical question about graph databases. We're using a landing customer data. So I had friends I could call up to ask them a quick technical question to help me make a decision on what to do about graph databases. I think the power of these educational programs is, I think there are, 500-600 people in this room. Imagine if you now have 10,000, 20,000 people trained up in AI. That means that if one of you have a problem, trying to figure out what exactly is YOLO v3 doing, or you're trying to compress a neural network and it's not working. Imagine if there were another 20,000 people in Colombia, maybe only 100 of which are your friends, but this huge community that you could reach out to ask a question. I found that in Silicon Valley and in Beijing, having the community where different people know different things, but we count on each other and help each other, it accelerates dramatically our ability to solve problems. And this is why AI, building these technologies is about building a community and building an ecosystem. If you put me on an island by myself, I would be much less effective, right? And so here in Colombia too, training up tens of thousands of people is very inspiring.
Thank you.
I will. I will keep going through the education part. So I spoke a lot with Kian, also the co-founder of Deep Learning AI. And you have a crazy number that books me like basically day and night. Like you managed to train around 1K people per semester in computer science only in Stanford. Like how is that possible? How you create that?
Yeah, so I think last year at Stanford University, my instructors, co-instructors and I think we taught about 1,500 enrollments on campus of Stanford students in different AI classes. And I think online education, things like Coursera and Deep Learning.ai is a way for many people to learn directly online. But there's an important role for universities on-campus education to play as well. One of the things I've learned is how to scale up on-campus education. I think Columbia has wonderful professors, but not enough of them. And if there's a way for a professor to teach a class of 100, 300, 500 instead of 20 students at a time, then that will also accelerate the development of AI talent. One of the things I do in most of my classes is use the flipped classroom format. And specifically, what that means is that for most of my classes, students actually watch the video lectures at home, and then come into the classroom for problem solving. So by the time a student shows up in the class, so traditionally, you listen to a lecture in the classroom and work on homework at home. In the flipped classroom, you swap them around. You watch the videos on lecture at home and come into the classroom to sit with classmates or sit with the instructors and solve problems together. And that's much more interactive. And when a student has a problem, we can talk it through together. There are educational studies that show that you actually learn better this way. But this also allows us to scale to teaching larger numbers of people in an on-campus fashion and also giving them a better experience. So I hope that Columbia universities will also experiment with models of education like flipped classroom and also finding ways to scale up to offering AI classes to maybe hundreds of people at a time.
Was Stanford always like that, or you have to basically propose that and create that kind of new type of education? And will be Colombia ready for that kind of education? Like, can we motivate the universities to adopt this kind of different way of educate people?
We are already doing it. The process is slower than we would like to, but there are some processes in order to change the curriculum. But that's part of what we are doing also. Is not only platforms, there is also a space for the actual universities. But we can't wait still till that plan is done. That's why we started with the other programs I mentioned.
Nice.
One of the unfortunate things, actually, for those of you who subscribe to the batch, I talked about this in this week's The Batch letter, but one of the unfortunate things about flipped classroom types of learning is that even though the data is very clear that students learn better that way, it doesn't feel like you're learning better that way. So with the traditional form of learning, students can go into a classroom and just sit there and listen to the professor give a lecture. And you can sit there and you can say, wow, Andrew gave such a dazzling lecture. And you can feel like you're learning. But the data shows that if we give you problems to solve in the classroom, so you are the one working in the classroom, sometimes it feels less good because we give the students challenging problems and you have to think, and it's not that easy. So because it's not that easy, sometimes you don't feel like you just enjoyed this dazzling experience, you understood everything. But it's because it feels a bit harder, that's what activates your brain, and that's actually what causes your better learning experience. One of the barriers to the adoption of these types of flipped classroom types of pedagogy in the United States and elsewhere is that even though you learn better that way, it doesn't feel that way. And so this perception has been one of the things we've had to slowly overcome in order to drive this adoption. So it's been a process, but I hope this type of active learning in the classroom movement will take off globally.
Yeah. You mentioned, Yehudi, the compass. What is the compass? How is prepared? Like, how influence these people, how it will affect the companies, like how promote AI in the country. Like, can you summarize a bit what is the Compass?
From the Compass, that is the public policy document for the next 5 years. You get commitment from the government. And why a Compass? Because it's not only one ministry who is doing the task. There are many institutions in the government that need to do it. So it's Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Education, of course. We do play a role. And what we did is, on one hand, take the principles from the OECD that we are part of, and we say, okay, each principle is going to be developed this way. And each institution has this kind of tasks. And as I said, it was actually made also in English in order to get feedback from these great institutions that I mentioned, and we are working with these comments to implement it here. So what you get there is commitment from money, from investment from the government for these plans that are going to be there, because it's like an action plan, and the commitment of execution in a given timeline.
Okay, nice. And how is that related with the OECD principles?
Yes. So, as you know, Colombia is part of the OECD recently, and they launched a document probably 4 months ago that is called AI Principles. Is the first worldwide big policy document regarding artificial intelligence. They sent us the document, we said, and asked if we want to be part of it. And we said, of course, are general, but that's why they need to be materialized in the Compass. So it's part of the same work. For instance, I can mention one of the principles. AI should benefit inclusive growth, sustainable development, and well-being. AI should be designed in a way that respects the rule of law, human rights, democratic values, diversity. There should be transparency and responsible disclosure around AI systems to ensure that people understand the outcomes and can challenge them. I know that one is controversial, but we can talk about that one. AI must function in a robust, secure, and safe way through their life cycle, and the organizations and individuals operating the AI systems should be held accountable for the functioning of the systems.
So you mentioned transparency and kind of explainability there among lines.
Yes, we want to be very careful on this, because it's not on the way that machine learning or deep learning can be used. That's not what is meant here. What is meant is that at least for critical functions, maybe national security, this kind of things, even if the output of the artificial intelligence system is going to be only a suggestion for the one actually making the decisions, we suggest that there is a way for the people to understand what's happening. So it's not a totally black box. That's like the reasoning behind that, without being too restrictive.
Yeah, no.
I don't need to make the question.
I think the transparency is a very important question. We want to understand what the algorithms do. I think at the heart of transparency is the issue of building trust in our algorithms.
Yes.
And transparency and explainability is one mechanism for building trust, because for safety critical, mission critical systems, we need to really trust these systems. If you look at the drug or the pharmaceutical industry, today we authorize people to sell drugs and to take legal drugs, medical drugs, whose biochemical processes we do not actually understand. So the FDA in the United States routinely approves drugs whose how they work we actually don't understand. But we still trust these drugs because they went through a gold standard randomized clinical trial. So we know, we're very confident the drug works. So I think that building machine learning systems, we should make best effort to explain to people what's actually going on. I think that there are multiple mechanisms as well, such as auditing to perform the AI system or other things to allow us to build the trust that we need to have in our algorithms, which I think is the deeper goal behind the transparency.
Excellent.
Who like cats in this room?
Cats. More or less.
Like, raise the hand. Andrew is raising the hand, or
Oh, yeah, sure.
you are famous because of cats. Some experiment you made in Google. What was that experiment about? How was the experiment executed? It's considered actually one of the big moments of AI in recent history. What is considered that, and what do you think is the next move in artificial intelligence development?
Yeah, so the cat experiment, it was a strange one. When I was leading the Google Brain team, I felt that scaling up neural networks would allow deep learning to have a bigger impact. So I gave the team a direction. Leaders sometimes have to simplify. So tell the team, build the biggest neural network you can, right? And the key objective is make the neural network as big as possible. So one of the demonstrations was we took a very large neural network, run on 16,000 CPU cores, and we used an unsupervised learning algorithm on YouTube videos, and then had it learn from YouTube. And we then probed it to see what it had learned. And we found that one of the neurons in this neural network run via sort of hierarchical sparse coding, but very large unsupervised learning, had learned to detect cat faces. And and I think, I think at that time there was a New York Times editor that really liked cats as well, and so it wound up a big New York Times story. We got some things right, we got some things wrong. I think one thing we did get right was the idea of scaling up deep learning algorithms, which was controversial back then, actually. Some of my senior friends in deep learning actually said, hey, Andrew, why are you wasting time trying to scale up deep learning? I actually got that feedback. But that turned out right. The thing we got wrong was many of us back then, around 2010, we thought a lot of the value would be in unsupervised learning, and most of us underestimated how well supervised learning would work, and was shortly after, around the time of the cat experiment, we also did the speech recognition work, and we realized that supervised learning was really working well, and fortunately or unfortunately, the deep learning community pivoted most of our efforts from unsupervised learning to supervised learning, which created a lot of value, still creating a lot of value, but also maybe starved unsupervised learning, which I think is also very important from maybe more resources from research. And I think basic research in unsupervised learning is still very exciting and could lead to new breakthroughs. It's just so many of us are too busy doing supervised learning because that's showing such a large amount of value right now.
And the next move of AI?
Sure. One thing I'm excited about for the future is small data. Everyone's heard of big data, and it's true. If you have more data, great. I love having more data. But one of the problems with big data is that a lot of the rise of AI, of machine learning, was driven by software internet companies or consumer internet companies, which have a lot of users and does a lot of data. But once you go outside consumer internet, for example, we do a lot of work in visual inspection, and no factory has 1 million pictures of scratched smartphones, right? If you want to check if a smartphone is scratched or not. If you have 1 million pictures of scratched smartphones, train a neural network, pretty easy problem. But if you have only 10 pictures of scratched smartphones, can you still get an algorithm to work? And this is important because, if a factory manufactured 1 million scratched smartphones, they need to throw that away. That'd be very, very, very expensive. So most companies outside software internet only have much smaller data sets. And if we could come up with the algorithms to make machine learning work, even with 10 examples or 100 examples, then this will break open machine learning to a lot of other industries who have only small data sets. Oh, and I think, so with the rise of data augmentation, data generation, one-shot learning, few-shot learning, transfer learning, I'm seeing a lot of progress in small data, but there's still a lot of work to be done too. And in fact, actually, one thing I know Alejandro's team has come up with techniques for small data that I've not seen anywhere else in the world. So I think there are actually technologies invented by Alejandro's team here in Colombia. Maybe it'll make it to the United States someday, but I think this is one place where, at least in this vertical, I think Colombia has invented stuff that I've not seen in the United States. So hopefully you guys as Colombia should be proud of that too.
Actually, some of the team is here, the other part is in Medellin. So actually, some people behind that small data technology we are developing is actually in the room. I will like to go for the questions of the public, but first, just a very short advice to Andrew, and then a very short advice to Yehudi.
I'm not able to give an advice to Andrew.
Come on.
No, really.
Yeah. I think,
No,
I think that's really great.
Again, I will go to invest more in Colombia. That's my. That's my advice.
Yeah, no, maybe I would say you may know this already. Government has a huge role to play in the rise of AI. I've seen this in other countries. In China, for example, government was a huge accelerator of the rise of AI in China. I'm excited to see Colombia's government making these investments, and count on me, or hopefully government can count on all of you too to support the government in lifting everyone up together.
Thank you. We will take it.
Okay, so there is some people with some microphones around, so I will open the questions from the public. You can select one by one. And
okay, thank you for being here and chose Colombia for one of the first countries for your artificial intelligence. We are right now in artificial intelligence generation, I think. But I listened to another topic that is important right now. It is cybersecurity. Yeah? I want to know, especially what are you doing in your companies about the application of cybersecurity in artificial intelligence? And what I think about this. And my last question is, it's my personal question. It is. One thing is in the academy, and the other thing is the industry. Yeah? I am a follower of John Saverio or something like that. And what do you think, what is the way to win a Turing Prize?
Yeah. Let me think. I hope I got that. Cybersecurity. Do you want to take cybersecurity, or do you want to do it? No. Okay. I'm not an expert on cybersecurity, but my friends in cybersecurity, my friends like Don Song, there was actually one of the heroes of deep learning on our deep learning specialization, or Dan Bonet. A lot of friends that work in computer security that are very knowledgeable on AI. So learning algorithms are used to detect threats, to fight against threats, but I think there are better experts than me about that. As for winning prizes, what most of my friends do is none of us actually optimize for that. Because I find that if you wake up in the morning and think, what do I need to do to win a certain prize, you don't end up doing the right things. So I think the way to win prizes is to wake up in the morning and think about the mission you want to work on, and be it an education mission, or the mission of developing AI technologies, or helping others embrace AI technologies, or the mission of lifting up the country. If you wake up every morning and focus on that, then the odds of various awards or rewards of coming much later will be much higher.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for coming here, and for all of you. I have a question concerning general artificial intelligence. What do you think are like the most promising approaches, and how far do you think are we from getting anything like a big milestone in that field?
Yeah. I love the AGI problem. I think it's a great basic research problem, but none of us really know how to get there. I think that unsupervised learning algorithm will probably be a big part of it. And actually, I have a 7-month-old daughter. So over the weekend, I took her to outdoor market, lots of fruits, vegetables. I was letting her play with the fruits and vegetables. Everyone was waving at her. And I was trying to make analogies between my daughter, my 7-month-old daughter, learning and machine learning. I was trying to figure out, is Nova, my daughter, is she doing reinforcement learning? It didn't feel like it. Is she doing self-supervised learning? It actually felt closer. I had a hard time making analogies from what she was doing to our standard machine learning paradigms. But I think it is clear that a lot of human learning is not parents pointing things out to our children, because no matter how patient or loving a parent you are, I mean, no parent ever pointed out 10,000 water bottles to our children. So I would love to see more investment in unsupervised learning and the cluster of ideas around it, since I think that will be important for getting to more general forms of intelligence. As for when we'll get there, it's very hard to say. Investments in faster computers will also be helpful. I think one of the barriers to unsupervised learning, self-supervised learning, is that they need so much data that even today's GPUs aren't fast enough to process the huge amounts of data we would need them to. And then whether it will take 100 years or 200 years or 500 years, I find that difficult to predict. But to all the, if you're a PhD student at a university, I think unsupervised learning, self-supervised learning are all great research problems to work on.
Here, hello, it's an honor to have such a guru in AI. So my question is about the industry. Can you give us some examples about unsupervised learning in the industry? And how do you see unsupervised industry in countries like this?
Did you say supervised or unsupervised?
Unsupervised.
Unsupervised learning.
Yeah, some examples and how you can see the use of that in Colombia or countries like this.
So unsupervised learning today has only a few specific applications. In natural language processing, word embeddings is very widely used. Large internet search companies all use word embeddings. And then there's one other thing that I mentioned briefly just now, self-supervised learning. This is a technique that is not widely known, but I'm pretty excited. But I'm actually excited about it, which is, let's say you have a huge unlabeled data set of images. What you can do is take a picture, right? So take a picture, say some picture, and I will randomly rotate it by 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, or 360 degrees. And I'm going to generate a new picture, maybe rotate it randomly, and ask you to predict what was the original orientation. So this is an example of self-supervised learning. And the cool thing about this is you can generate infinite amounts of labeled data because you rotated that image by some random orientation, so you know what was the original ground truth implementation. So there are a few flavors of this. Another one is if you take a picture, slice it into a 9x9 grid, and shuffle the 9 pieces randomly, and have a learning algorithm try to recover what was the original ordering of the 9 pieces of the picture that you just sliced it into. And this is called the jigsaw task. And these are examples of problems where you can make up infinite amounts of labeled training data. And one of the most fascinating results, actually when I was at the ICML International Conference on Machine Learning a few months ago, I spent a whole day at the self-supervised learning workshop. But the cool thing about this is you can then train a large neural network on this infinite training set or giant training set that you made up. And we're finding that the learned representations are useful and can be transferred to new supervised learning tasks. We can now do well with a relatively small amounts of data. So this is one thing that is not widely in production yet, but I think the concept of word embeddings, where you delete a word and predict the missing word, is also a made-up task. This idea of taking unlabeled data, making up a supervised learning task, using that to learn representation that you then transfer to something else is already very widely used in NLP. I think it will gain traction in computer vision and maybe other areas as well.
Greetings, Andrew. I am Rodrigo Vargas. I'm a medical doctor. I have one broad question and one specific question. In your experience, how the culture influenced the appropriate implementation of AI if we would like to compare between China, Colombia, and the US? And the second question is, how would you develop a first approach implementation strategy in AI for a hospital setting?
Cool. So the first question, I think, let's see, the tech cultures in China and the US are different. There's a stereotype that engineers in China work harder, and that stereotype is true. But I think other things, I think the US is better at basic research, whereas China, AI teams tend to be close to customer, close to market, and very good at innovating and iterating quickly on products and finding product market fit. I think that's one difference. I think that Colombia is still growing, and I think, frankly, it's too early for me to have a strong point of view on the culture here. Colombia is not as advanced as Silicon Valley or Beijing in AI, but it's early enough. Even Silicon Valley and Beijing are not yet mature, which is why I think Colombia has a very good chance if Colombia grows quickly. I don't know. Do you want to take that question? You would know the Colombia culture than I do.
That one is tricky. There is a difference between the States and China, but I think that the gap is closing. But it's very encouraging what you said about the small data, because we as a government are never going to have the kind of data that there is in China, for instance, and that the big tech industries have in the States. So I think that there is a chance there. It's not going to be a winner-takes-all race, hopefully, and this small data give us some hope that we can play that game too.
Yeah, and as for healthcare systems, you know, the U.S. government has its strengths and weaknesses, right? If you're following the news, there's a lot going on in the U.S. this week. But one thing that is actually quite good in the U.S. right now is the U.S. FDA. I'm finding that U.S. FDA, which approves drugs, treatment solutions, is actually quite forward-thinking and is working closely with AI teams to figure out how to pass regulatory approval of AI solutions to help with healthcare. So I think this is another place in industries that are highly regulated, such as healthcare. Government has an important responsibility to protect patients, but a government that is thoughtful and can think through what are the new regulations to help technologies come to market. There are things we want to happen in healthcare and things we don't want to happen. Same for finance, same for transportation. So I think having public-private partnerships work together, companies working together, government, to figure out what are the regulations that protect consumers but allows the technology to come to market, I think that will accelerate the adoption of AI in healthcare and in other regulated sectors.
Good evening, and sorry for the English. What is your opinion about fuzzy logic and the possibility or the future, or if there are future into merge fuzzy logic in order to improve with modern algorithms with like deep learning or neural network, or shall we discard fuzzy logic and only use modern algorithms like deep learning and neural networks, especially in applications like robotics and control? Sorry for the English if I...
Sorry. The question is going to the fuzzy logic, and if you see a combination of fuzzy logic with neural networks, for example, or if we just simply discard research in fuzzy logic for...
Oh, fuzzy logic.
Yeah, fuzzy logic.
Oh, first order logic.
Fuzzy logic.
Oh, fuzzy logic. Got it. Yes, thank you.
Logic.
So,
Fuzzy logic. Okay.
Yeah. I think I'm going to be very frank. I use a lot of tools in AI. I use, our teams when we build AI solutions. AI is a portfolio of many different tools, including deep learning, probabilistic graphical models, planning algorithms, graph search algorithms, knowledge graphs, game theory. I find that our teams use a broad portfolio of AI tools. In what we do in landing AI, deep learning, and AI fun, we do not use fuzzy logic. That's my very honest. And maybe I feel like it's not that fuzzy logic is bad, but if you look at the teams that use fuzzy logic compared to, say, probabilistic graphical models, I feel like the formalism of probability theory has been ascendant, and that has typically led to the better development of better solutions than the types of tools and paradigms that fuzzy logic uses. So conferences like UAI, Uncertainty in AI, migrated from fuzzy logic types of implementations to much more probabilistic formalisms, and I think that has been helpful for being better at developing solutions.
Okay, we have time for one more question. So I would like to have one question of this group here. Well, we have the group of the women in technology. So if they have one question, I will give priority to that one. Yeah, let's take two. Just you can do the question, and then we can move to that. You can do it. That's right.
Hello? Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, Andrew. I am a big fan of you. I have tried to reach you, like, as I told to Alejandro previously, like, about 2 years ago, going to Stanford, but it's not very easy to catch you. So, on this opportunity, I can tell you that I am part of the IEEE International Standard Development Group for Artificial Intelligence. I don't know if you have heard about it before, but my question is, if you will be in a team attempting to develop an international standard that will be ethically, or where you want people, not only users, but developers, to create AI in an ethical way, I mean, for the good of people, what do you think are the main things that you need to consider in order to make it good for the people? Because you know that it can turn bad or good depending on the guys who makes the development. So far, what I had seen through the experts in the world is that they are very concerned about the usage of artificial intelligence in war. So what will you do? And also if we can reach you and your friends like Dr. Pepe Lee, Andres Carpati, Justin Johnson, Serena Jones, for advices to include it on the standard, because it's really needed. So far we have seen in Google the standard that they were developing, but there are many things that need to be included, and we are working very hard. In fact, we have been working for 2 years, and that's it. We will really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for raising that. I think making sure that what we build is ethical and makes the world better off is very important. And I talk about this in some amounts in my courses like AI for Everyone and the deep learning specialization. One thing that is not that you may not know was prior to creating those courses, I asked myself a very similar question. I actually bought a few books on ethics and tried to read a few books on ethics because I know a lot of engineers wanted, these are the 5 things I need to do to be ethical. And I thought if I actually read a few books on ethics, read about different theories of how to be ethical, and I failed to distill down this very complicated thing about ethics into a few actionable rules. I actually tried and I was not able to. Unfortunately, I think it is complicated. I worry about, I think we must keep on working to reduce bias in AI algorithms. I think the growth we have should be inclusive. Algorithms should be trustworthy through transparency or through other mechanisms. I think it's important that even as we create wealth, we take everyone along with us. I think that AI will displace some jobs, but when it does so, I think we have a responsibility to make sure to reskill the people, to help them find meaningful work, and to make sure that we treat people well. So AI is very powerful. There are a lot of things we could do. I don't know how to distill it down to 1 or 2 things, but maybe I'll mention a couple patterns. One is I find that people that more inclusive teams, and especially inclusive, diverse teams that think about these issues are more likely to reach a good solution than less diverse teams that don't think about these issues. So I think if you have a team that at least raises the question, we can build an addictive digital product, and make people spend a lot of time with us and we'll sell them ads. But are we making the world a better place? If you can foster a culture to have different opinions and have that debate, it doesn't guarantee you reach a good answer, but I think it significantly increases the odds that you reach a good answer. And then I think the second thing is ultimately because we're not able to come up with clear guidelines, I think ultimately it is up to each of us when we wake up in the morning to decide what to do and what not to do. And I should tell you, at AI Fund, there was a project idea, I don't want to tell you the idea, because I think it'll make the world worse. There's an idea that, to build an addictive digital product, but I said, yes, this could be a profitable business, but I don't want to do that. And I killed that project on the basis that I did not think it would make the world any better off. So I think it's up to each of us to keep on making decisions like that. I'll share with you one thing I've not shared ever before, which is one of the things I like to try to do is I think, this will sound very naive, but maybe it'll be useful to you. I think machine learning should bring joy to people. And when I look at my work, I sometimes ask myself, if we build this product, if we launch this thing, if we help this company, am I playing a role and I actually want to bring people joy rather than happiness. You could be happy by winning the lottery, but go and win the lottery, but that's not what I really want to do. I find joy in working hard. I find joy in learning. I find joy in serving and helping other people. And I find that human joy comes from doing the things that are more deeply meaningful to ourselves. And so one question I sometimes ask myself when deciding whether or not to work on a project is, if you do this, can you bring joy to others? And maybe that's an overly simplified filter for some things we should or should not do.
Let's go with the last question here, and then we close the question session.
Hi, Andrew. You were talking about small data, and at my company, Linked AI, we are generating synthetic data to train computer vision models. So I want to know what are your thoughts on this, and if you think that this would help for small data sets, and if you are applying it in your companies.
Yes, I think that small data techniques, we actually do many different things depending on the problem. And so I think synthetic data, data generation, data augmentation is one of the tools. And actually Alejandro has developed very innovative data synthesis, data generation methods. And there are also other things as well. So for example, we've experimented a lot with few shot learning techniques where you learn from a lot of tasks. Actually, for example, in the industrial setting, if you learn to detect a lot of scratches on metal surfaces, on this surface, that surface, then when there's a new manufacturer that only has one scratch device to show you, maybe you can learn much faster to detect scratches in a new application scenario. But I think all of these things, I think I mentioned one shot, few shot, data synthesis, transfer learning, self-supervised learning. I think all of these are different techniques. And just like big data is not one technique, I think that we are developing a variety of different techniques that work well in different small data settings. But I think data synthesis is one of the important techniques.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Just to close, do you have some advice for the people in the public? And what would
Yes, there is going to be a talk by Andrew Ng tomorrow in Colombia 400, and the entry is free. You just need to register at call40.co. That's
okay.
my advice.
And do you have some advice for the people in the public?
Yeah, maybe if you remember just one thing from what I said tonight, that there's one thing I hope you remember, which is, so as context, before we built a team in Colombia, about a year and a half ago, we spent a long time, almost 6 months, doing the extensive study of a lot of different cities and a lot of different places. We looked at a lot of cities in Southeast Asia, or Asia more broadly. We looked in Europe, we looked at a lot of places in Latin America. And after doing a lot of studies and my team visiting different cities, I was visiting some cities myself as well, we decided to build an office in Colombia based on the strong engineering talent already here based on the strong educational system, based on the strong partners we found, both in private companies like Ruta NA was super helpful. We're able to partner, found the government doing a great job providing education. It was based on all of these things that we decided to come to Colombia. So we actually had a lot of data before we came here. And one thing I want to leave you with is I believe in Colombia becoming a future AI hub. But I need you to also believe in Colombia. Because it is only with all of us working together, telling people we believe in Colombia, encouraging your friends to learn about AI, encouraging people from all around the world to come to Colombia to work with us. And it's only by all of us believing in Colombia, telling the whole world about it, that together we could build up this nation to be one of the future AI hubs.
That's a really nice piece of advice, Andrew. I believe also in Colombia. I think Yehudi also believes in Colombia.
I really do.
So let's work to make this a rising AI hub, and let's work together to have nice companies, nice talent, and grow together all the country along. We will be taking some pictures with Andrew. We will make a line behind Rommel. Rommel will stay there, and because otherwise it will be very difficult. So we want Andrew to have, like you to meet Andrew, take a picture with him, and Rommel will make a line there. Very nice to, thank you for coming, and very nice to have you here. Very nice to have Andrew here, and
thank you.
Gracias por todo.